on my phone as well so I can see us. Yay!
Brilliant.
Welcome, Jennifer.
Hi, Rebecca. Thank you so much for inviting me.
I always feel like I need to do like a proper song, like right at the beginning, like Jennifer.
Yeah, it's kind of like when people like yell, sing, whatever my name, it's usually
Yell.
the Jenny from Forrest Gump. Like really long stretch Jenny when he's like running after her, and I'm like, yeah. I'm all yeah. Whereas when I'm singing, I'm going like more like I'm still Jenny from the block.
Yes.
Little Noah. That's where like I rather have that stuck in my head than like the Forrest Gump one.
Yeah. We'll go with the flow. Although I'm not going to attempt to do it like Jenny from the Block does. Jennifer Lopez, doesn't she look amazing?
I got what age is that woman now? Like
She's like
50,
50.
51.
Yeah. I'm loving her on Instagram.
Defying any rules of aging for sure.
I'm following her on Instagram and absolutely loving watching her and just admiring who she is. She's incredible. So
Yeah.
Jennifer Walter, let's talk about you. You tell tell me who you are. Let's do you want to introduce yourself? Let everyone know who you are, what you do, how you work with your clients.
Yeah, I'd love that. And also like just being named in the same the sentence with Jennifer Lopez, which is brilliant. So I'm Jen. I'm a sociologist and like design trend rebranding strategist. So I basically help businesses make something that works even better through their branding. Um, and like my friends know me as always kind of like being too loud, talking more or less than a Lorelai Gilmore speed in both English and German. And I kind of swear for emphasis, which is I don't know. My clients love me for it, but like some people don't, which is fine. So if I ever accidentally swear, I'm really sorry and put on your headphones or go away from the kids.
Yeah. Just letting you know. Parental supervision.
You've been
Not even
warned.
parental
You've been warned.
supervision.
Yeah. Sometimes I don't.
And
Yeah,
you've
I.
got a is your little boy 2? How old's your little
Yeah,
boy?
he just turned 2 2 weeks ago. Yeah.
Lovely.
Yeah,
I
he is in that brilliant, glorious age where every second word out of his mouth is no.
yeah.
Um, and his
Yeah.
favorite thing to do is running away
Yeah.
from parents, which is fun.
I about the swearing and the 2-year-old thing. My 3-year-old, like we never we try not to swear in front of the kids as much as possible, but you know they just sometimes just happens. And she was I'm not going to say it now, but you know. Anyway, this morning I was asked to give some comments actually to a parenting brand about what you wish you knew about having a toddler. And actually, I'd like to hear what you wish you knew. I'll tell you what mine was. Mine was just give them whatever they want whenever they want, as much as possible. like be, before you have
Yeah,
a child, like people say to you, or you think, don't you, like you've got to show them who's the boss, and you've got to make sure like they what was like show them who's boss and make sure that they know who's in charge, but really they're in charge.
yeah,
And the comment I gave was you know, like as often as possible just give them what they want, because usually it's just like a certain cup or a certain
yeah,
plate.
yeah. Or that shirt. Yeah, for sure. I think it's important to know your ground rules and where you're standing firm, and everything else. I'm like, okay, go wear that shirt, go drink from that cup, like go eat the pasta from like the floor. It has been cleaned. It's fine. Go. Like, yeah, I don't know.
Oh,
But yeah, for sure. And that would definitely be like if I only knew. And for me, I think it would be like children don't do what you say, they do what you do. So it's actually really made both me and my partner, it made us really conscious about what we're doing unconsciously,
Mm.
because we don't want them to pick something up, right? Like we have to now model everything, and it's really exhausting as well, right? Like because they pick up what you do, so you have to kind of like model how to, what it means to be in a family, what it means to be in a relationship, what it means to be a person, a decent person, a kind person. Like it's just, you can't tell them, right? You have to like show them. So I wish I knew dad before be like better prepared.
Yeah, but we're always learning and growing, aren't we? So
Yeah, there's no faster. I know, to me that like having a kid was really like a growth accelerator for sure.
yeah. So how long have you had your business for?
Oh, good. Gosh. I've been out on my own for, this is now the fifth year. Yeah.
Yeah. So talk to me about. I know we're going to come on to talking about the NLP course and stuff, but I'm really interested in your experiences of being a mum and having a business and how you've kind of juggled that. So you've had your business and then
Chuckling.
uh, you had your business before you had your child. What was like your perceptions of what was going to happen and like what then did happen?
um, yeah, so I knew very early on, when I found out that I'm pregnant, that we're gonna really try to go like 50-50 with the whole parenting thing. And even to like, and now my husband actually is taking care of the kid more than I do. So a lot of that would not have been possible without his support. And he is a teacher, so he has like a job with a very like, a lot of like structure, and not a lot of like, oh, I need to work late or I need to be there. So that really helped us. Um, and I knew as well that I'm gonna take 6 months off for maternity leave, like a full 6 months. Where I'm not gonna take on new clients, and the ones I have, like either like handing off to a friend, yeah, or just be like, or make sure they're ready to survive 6 months without me. Um, yeah, and that was the planning part. And that reality, like it's still wild, even like 2 years later. I kind of was excited to go back then. Like I really took, from the 6 months, I was really strict with like 4 or 5 months, and then sort of slowly eased back into things.
Mm.
Um, but it's still wild. Like I had to accept that I had like, since giving birth, I have some health issues. I I didn't know that. Wish things I knew before becoming pregnant. I got celiac through
Oh,
pregnancy. So apparently, if you have like genetic predispositions, it's not uncommon that autoimmune disease kick in through pregnancy. Um, so that was like a lot of like navigating, like actually finding out what's wrong with me, navigating that, also like postpartum, like recovery, and like not depression, but just like funkiness. Yeah, and even today, like every day is kind of, or every week is different, like depending on where the kid is, where am I, where my partner is at, and it's just navigating that.
yeah.
And yeah, and it's just really, and I think the biggest learning was not to crap on myself if things don't really go the way I wanted them to go on like that specific day.
Yeah, yeah. I think what I learned the hard way as well was about releasing the need to try and control. And that has been a massive learning curve for me. Like what I realized when I first had my first child, my oldest now is 6, and you've got it all to come. But when I first had her, I always had this like need to try and control things to make it perfect or make it right, or and then I'd judge myself when it didn't go right, and it was such a challenge, and that in itself was so exhausting. And being able to just let go of that and just release that made such a difference.
Yeah, yeah, for sure. Like it sometimes felt like I'm my own worst enemy with that thing, right? Because you have that vision of how like working with a toddler in your head is gonna look like, and that into that vision you get feeded into like other images from maybe like social media of like mompreneurs hashtags, right? And you're like, oh, okay, this is also easy. I can rock my bounce my baby while like sending invoices and updating my webpage and whatever and whatnot. And sometimes it is,
Not for
but other
me.
times it is not.
Yeah.
That is cool too. Like really, yeah, being more acceptive of both, like of all the sides, of all the different variations
Yeah,
of
yeah.
motherhood and business.
Yeah, I found that I had to put boundaries in place, and I realised quite
Yeah,
quickly that I had to stop trying to work whilst I had the kids with me. It's like that's just not working for me.
yeah,
So I had to like
yeah,
make them like this is my work time and this is my child time, and
yeah.
the different
I agree.
and
Yeah, I agree 100%.
the amount of
Like
times that I've had my child running half naked or naked on a live stream.
it's kind of like that viral BBC video.
Yeah.
The woman, the babysitter getting the kids bag out of it. Like, yeah, yeah. Like I can't count like the times like my kiddo has like yeah bombed my Zoom calls or something. Like that's just gonna happen if you're working at home, especially when there was like the pandemic going on and the lockdowns. But I don't know. The cool thing is nobody ever bothered, right? Like they're usually like, oh, he's so cute. Like bring him like under the screen so we can like. I'm like, yeah, okay, sure, there you go. Like he's not gonna do much because I don't know. He was like 6 months old, 8 months old. Like he was just. Or not even now at 2 years, like he's just running in and like trying to whatever touch the screen or something. And that real like made me realize like okay, it has paid off that I have not like taking on every project there came along, right? But I was actually really specific about the people I want to work with and put a lot of emphasis on a value fit. And that is paying off now because nobody was like, oh, but you're going on maternity leave for 6 months? Like, oh, ooh, yeah, we're gonna call you back. Like, there was just like, okay, this is what I'm gonna do. You're being supported through that. You have options. I'll see you in 6 months. And so that was really, yeah, a really good decision in hindsight to really, from the beginning, really put my foot down and be like, no, no, I don't like follow the easy money. I just
Yeah.
rather really focus on the people I want to work with.
Yeah, and actually that does become the easy money because when you are true to yourself and you trust in that process, then
Yeah,
clients are your dream clients, and when you have them boundaries in place for yourself and who you want to work with and how
yeah,
you want that to be, that makes such a difference. And
yeah,
a lot of people come through, and I mean, we've got a few different kinds of people who do our NLP course. We've got people who have never had a business before or have had a different kind of business and want to become a coach. We have people like you who have been doing something already, you've got a business, or you've been doing a little bit of maybe mentoring, maybe a little bit of coaching, but you want then extra tools and techniques to really support your clients through. And then we
yeah,
have people who are already working in jobs or, positions like carers, NHS teachers, people who have no intention of leaving what they're currently doing, but they just want some more life skills and hacks and tools and
yeah.
techniques. So talk to me about how your experience of like having your child and being able to have your own business and have that autonomy to be able to decide what you're doing and when you're doing, like, because I know some people who think about doing our course are in the position where they've either had kids or they're thinking about having kids, and working 9 to 5 it isn't necessarily giving them the freedom that they need in order to be able to have the life that they want.
Um, yeah, like disclaimer for like the first couple of years, I like I went like I was in corporate and I quit cold turkey and started on my own and then kind of realized, okay, like I miss like having a team, being around people, um, and also having like not to worry about money. So I went into like a part-time position, like 2 days a week, um, for some time at the beginning, just to, because I knew if I have the pressure of making money, I would not, I would be tempted to not make the decisions that are best for me and my business long term. I would prioritize short term decisions, short term value over long term. So I knew, okay, if I have to get that in the way. So I think there's a lot of like perceived shame sometimes when you say like, oh, it's like I have this, I like work that in that position and I'm building this, and they're like, oh, it's a side hustle or it's a hobby or whatever. Like completely free yourself from that noise. Like whatever is right for you. No one can tell you what's right for you, right? Like no coach, no one. It's just really you have to create enough self-awareness that you know what kind of conditions you need to like function best.
Yeah.
And and that is really something I really enjoyed about NLP as well, because it's like not just like, oh, you learn NLP to go out and help others, but it's really like I can apply it to myself first and then be like, oh, okay, now I'm in like putting on my life jacket on first and then actually go out and like help others, which I thought was a really intriguing premise to me.
Yeah, and that is so key as well about, about having a job and doing something alongside building your business, because I did the same thing. Like when I had my first business, well, it wasn't my first business, but it was my first proper business. When I was 21, I just quit corporate cold turkey as well, and I had no kids. It didn't matter. But the second time round, when I was 24, when I set up this business, I had my little girl who was still a baby, so it wasn't an option to do that. So I
Mm,
still worked my full-time job alongside building my coaching business until I had replaced my income to then be able to leave my full-time
mm,
job. And like you said, there should be no shame in
yeah,
that. Like
no,
it doesn't matter what other people think or what other people say. And I actually spoke a couple of weeks ago about what to do if people roll their eyes and say to you, oh, she's doing something else now. And I think that's something that people say to me all the time. They say, I'm thinking about doing your course, but I'm just worried about, because I know that people always, I'm always doing something different. I'm always changing my mind, and I'm always thinking of different things that I want to do. And like I always say, well, if you are feeling called to doing something, regardless of what that something is, if you are feeling pulled towards that, there is a reason for that.
yeah, yeah, for sure. And like even now looking back, I mean, I first like really became a trained graphic designer like at the age of like 20. And then I like went back and got my university degrees. So that was already kind of like a shift. And it shifted a couple of times since then. But looking back, I can see there was always kind of like a red thread. There always was. It just had different forms.
Mm,
And that's totally okay, right? Like you are allowed to change your mind. You're allowed to like evolve and grow. Like whenever, like I think it helps to kind of like have a scientist mindset. Like whenever you have new pieces of information about yourself or about like your circumstances or your whatever, incorporate that into what you do. That's just that's what this is all about, right? Like,
yes.
and there is no. I think sometimes people get like this view of like, oh, okay, like I get like that
Yeah,
comes up with
please.
brand, like when working with branding with certain types of entrepreneurs who are like multi hyphenate. They're like, oh, but like I don't want to confuse people, and it's like, yeah, fine, but like I work with a wedding photographer. She has like, I mean, that in itself is high maintenance, but she has 4 websites to really target the people she wants to target because there's no crossover between like wedding photography and like baby photography. But there's always a way that feels good to you. Um, and you just, yeah, got to be adventurous enough to like see what that might be.
Yeah, yeah. And it's funny actually, this week we've had a photographer join the NLP course. And she said, I don't want to change anything about what I'm doing. I just want more things to be able to help the people that I'm seeing on a regular
Yeah.
basis. And that just made me like, yes, like it's not necessarily
Yeah.
about changing what you're already doing. It's about arming yourself with these tools, like you said, like putting your own life jacket on first, and giving yourself and arming yourself with the tools and techniques that can support you in your own life
Yeah.
and then
Yeah.
help others as
Yeah.
well. Yeah.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, that I can like totally see myself in that too. Like I currently, I don't feel like I'm gonna set up my own like NLP practitioner or coaching business in the sense of like it's marketed and fronted as like an NLP practitioner. But I know the tools will help me in the work I'm already doing with my clients. Like I know it will get them where they want to go. Maybe like a tick faster. Um, so yeah, it's so versatile, and that's like that what makes like a good tool, right? Like it means something like it means something different to people, and it only comes into meaning when you actually apply it.
Yeah, yeah. And what you said about like the red thread between everything as well, like I always say that, like you never fully understand when you're in that moment, when you're getting these
Yeah.
signs from the universe or this inner pull, whatever we want to call it. This, when I first experienced that, I didn't know what the universe, like I didn't know the energies of the universe or the law of attraction. If you'd have told me about that then, I'd have been like, what
It's kind of
how?
woo-woo-y.
um but I did, like, and it was only until after doing my training and then going through the process and looking back now that you can then really join the dots and be like, get it now. I get that all makes sense and actually all did fit together. Like the
Yeah, I mean your
last
background in sales, right? Like
Exactly. And the last marketing campaign I ran in my last business was, so I had a fashion business before this business, and it was about helping women feel amazing. And the last campaign that I ran was helping women feel fabulous. And it was called Feel Fabulous, the campaign that I ran. And I never fully understood why I was running that campaign at the time. It just came to me like a it kind of like hit me like a wave. And one day I just woke up and I was like, oh, I need to do this campaign, Feel Fabulous. And we ran this big campaign around it. And it was shortly after that that I then closed the business because
mm,
I had loads of limiting beliefs and self-limiting beliefs, imposter syndrome, self-sabotage, and I closed the business. And I didn't get it then, but now I'm like, that happened because I needed to be here, not there.
mm-hmm. Yeah.
We had a chat, didn't we, a couple of weeks ago about what you do and how you help your clients with branding. And I want to bring that up because I think that's so powerful. And do you remember we spoke about how when people come to you and they want a new brand, and then sometimes they'll chop and change their mind, but when they fully, understand themselves,
Yeah.
it doesn't necessarily happen like that. Talk to me about that.
Yeah, I truly like from my own experience, I truly believe if you build from the inside out, you will attract the people you want to attract, the right kind of people. Kind of like a beacon, you would just shine brighter to your kind of people. Um, and the thing is, people be like, oh yeah, okay, I get that, I want that. But what people don't realize is then they come to me and be like, oh, I want that. Please do that for me. And I'm like, I can like show you the way. And I can be there every step of the way, but the work is within you. I cannot tell you what your like inner authentic self looks like. Um, and so for a lot of clients, it actually starts with like taking a step back, calming down enough, like creating enough spaciousness and like calm to hear their voice again and actually start trusting them. And that's even more important, like self-trust. You need to have self-trust to actually recognize that voice and follow through on those notions or hunches or waves or whatever you want to call it, right? Because sometimes people like, oh yeah, they might be aware of it, but it might like scare like the baby Jesus out of them, and they're like, okay, yeah, I'm not gonna do that. Um, so yeah, it really is. So a lot of that has really to go and ask them the right questions on how they see themselves, and then help them like become sort of an architect on how others see them.
Yeah, because there is so much noise as well, isn't there? And there's so much out there on social media, and
Yeah,
technology
yeah,
has advanced so much, which is incredible in so many ways. But then, and I get asked a lot about this within the media that work that I do around like, well, how does social media have an impact on people's mental health? And I'm like, well, it's not social media isn't helping, but it's not social media that's causing the problem. The problem's already there, and social media is just aggravating the problem.
yeah, yeah,
Like,
for sure.
the problem is really that people don't necessarily understand who they are at the core, and they don't have that trust in themselves, or the noise that creates negative self-talk, self-sabotage, comparing to other people outside
Mm,
of themselves, trying to fill themselves up from something outside of themselves to validate who they are within.
yes,
But
yes,
when you know who you are within, and you can validate who you are in here instead of out here,
yeah,
that's when the magic happens.
yeah. And just adding on to like riffing off that, like as a sociologist, the problem or like the challenge with social media as well is we people, we have like an innate desire to connect and to belong. Um, so social media at first glance fills that void, but it's very like it's just like the front. It's just fronting for like belonging and connection. And for some people, it's really hard to see that this is just like the front
Mm,
and nothing with substance behind it.
yeah. Yeah, there
So
was.
it really it takes, yeah, it takes a lot to also really like consciously block out that noise.
And there was a picture on, I think it was Ariane Huffington's Instagram the other day, and it was like this picture of this apple, and on the apple there was like this mirror, and you could see like a nice juicy apple, but from the camera angle you could see this side of the apple,
Oh,
and the apple had been bitten into. And so from this side you could see half, like a half eaten apple, but on the other side you could see this red juicy nice looking apple. And I don't remember exactly what the quote was on it, but it mentioned something about social media and what you actually
yeah,
see and what actually is going on in
yeah,
the background. I thought that was brilliant.
yeah, yeah, for sure. And that's sometimes where it's like kind of like where I as like like someone working in branding be like, yeah, like obviously I can put a nice dress on it, but there certain like a certain codex, right? Like in NLP as well, like where you're not trying to perceive people into doing things. You're not like make like distorting reality into and tricking people into doing something. I think that's really really key to like do honest work. Yeah, but sometimes it's just really it gets murky, right?
Mm,
Like we know, okay, obviously like I don't want to I don't know, go on social media and like, oh, sometimes I even like, I'm afraid like, oh, if I post this, does this like make people think like I don't have my shit together? And you're like, oh, maybe I don't post it. And it's sort of like self-censoring. And then it comes like, wait, no, like perfection is not a pre-requirement for leadership. Like
yes.
it is not. It's actually the
Mm,
opposite.
yeah. And I'm like, I asked myself this question, and then I'm like, well, maybe I just haven't got my shit together.
Yeah, yeah. This is like totally, yeah, yeah,
And that's
totally. Like,
okay.
yeah, it's totally okay. Just because like you don't have your shit together when it comes to, I don't know, your diet or your whatever, your exercise routine or whatever it is, doesn't mean you don't have your shit together when it comes to teaching NLP or rebranding your client's business. Those that
Yeah, it's
have
not the
nothing to do
same
with each other.
thing. Yeah,
Yeah,
exactly.
yeah,
And
exactly.
I think that is so important as well, because I think a lot of time, and I've previously done it where I've had this self-judgment and expected myself to have done something or been something or had something or
Yeah,
said something,
mm,
or and
yeah,
then I'm like, yeah,
yeah,
but whose ideal is this? Like, where does this
yeah.
even come from? I've just made this all up in my head. Like,
Yeah, yeah. Like I when people ask me, okay, what actually are you doing? Like, what is sociology actually doing? And I always kind of like to break it down into, I'm always asking, when things are the way they are, I'm always asking, okay, who is profiting from this? Right. And it's always really interesting to ask yourself, like, when you're feeling, I don't know, when you're feeling, sometimes when I'm like feeling shit about like how, I don't know, like, oh, okay, I should not have eaten that ice cream, and like, oh, okay, yeah, I don't know, I'm not gonna look in the mirror now for like a week. I'd be like, who is actually profiting of
Okay.
me feeling not good about my body? It's not me. It might be the diet industry trying to sell me stuff to, or the fashion industry or the beauty industry. Like, is where's the money? Follow the money, and the truth will reveal.
Yeah, yeah. And on that note, like one of the things that frustrates me so much, especially within the fashion industry, and I found this so hard when I owned a fashion business, was that the sizing of things is never consistent. Never, even if you buy it from the same place. Like
Yeah,
I
yeah,
shop in one place regularly and I love them. I love the place that I shop from. But sometimes something will come and I'll order it in the right size, it won't fit. I'll order it in the next size and it still won't fit. And I'm like, hang about. Like,
yeah,
but then I've got
yeah,
another item of clothing in the right size that still fits me from the same place. Like, it doesn't. Anyway.
yeah. And I think what the toxic thing about this is, then like, we tell ourselves stories about
Yes.
the letters on the tags on our dresses and clothes, and that's the problem.
Mm,
It's not what I mean. Whatever they're gonna write on the, like, if it's like a 4X large or in small or an XXX small, whatever. But it's about the stories we tell ourselves
exactly.
about the people we are or we aren't.
Yeah, and the perceptions that we then create
Yeah,
in our minds, which we then
yeah,
project out into the world. And yeah, and thankfully, thankfully because I train NLP, that is one of the things that I do have my shit together about. um, but it is so easy for us to create this notion and distorted perception of what actually is and what actually isn't. So, talk to me about why you came across our NLP course and then how you ended up going through the course and what your experience of it was.
um, yeah. So I think a lot of the backstory was already covered. So I was working already with my clients, and as a sociologist, like, I'm trying to ask questions that are sometimes uncomfortable to hear, to answer. And I always kind of knew, okay, like, I had increasingly people I work with that had limiting beliefs. Like, oh, I can't charge this much, or like, who am I to charge this much, or who am I to do this, or like, just it came up in a cluster of very similar kind of things. Like, okay, now I would like to like help them push through that, but I don't feel like there's something missing in my tool belt. Um, so I wasn't looking up NLP specifically, but we talked about it last time in as well. Like, the Facebook fairy popped up, your NLP course, and I was like, oh, that sounds really interesting. Like, I only heard vaguely of it. I remember I read an article about it once, like, years back, but I haven't really done what much with it. Yeah, and then I more or less, I looked into it, I looked into the course. I knew, like, okay, yeah, like, from the perception I had of you, it's like, yeah, okay, that sounds great. Like, I like her, so I'm gonna just, and I signed up pretty, like, I don't know, I didn't think I did any of your free webinars or whatever, and I just like, yeah, okay, sign me up for like the practitioner. Um, and then there was a lot of like going on business and motherhood and health stuff, and I was like, okay, I need extra support. um and then, yeah, I think we talked on one of the calls, and you've introduced me to your accelerator program, and I was like, okay, yeah, that sounds brilliant. Like,
Mm,
I want to go through that 1 week like immersive experience,
yeah, yeah,
and have not regretted doing that, for
yeah.
sure. Like, it was absolutely brilliant.
Yeah. So you've got the option, haven't you, to do the online NLP course, and then once you're in the online NLP course, which you can complete over 3 months, or there's no time limit, is that you can go through it and take as long as you want to
Yeah.
go through it or as little as you want to go through it. You can just completely spend as much as you want going through it, and then you can
Mm-hmm.
re-go through it as well. And then we do have the optional add-on, which is the 6 days, which you then did with us as well. And like you said, like life gets busy, doesn't it? And that's the reason why we've got the option. Some people prefer to have the option to be able to just go through it as and
Yeah.
when works for them, whereas other people like to just get it done, like to block out that time in the diary, the full 6 days, and just get it out and done.
Yeah. Yeah. It was really like, okay, my kids in daycare, everything is taken care of. I'm really now like, I have this time blocked. Like my clients know I'm away on like a coaching education. And it just was really great to really dive in. And although like I must say I did kind of underplay how exhausting it is. It's like I need a vacation after
Yeah,
6 days.
it is an immense experience, isn't it? Because you're not only learning to become an NLP coach and supporting other people to create their breakthroughs as you go through the course, you're also
Mm,
experiencing it firsthand as well. So you're going through that and releasing so much in the process of doing that. So
yeah.
yeah, what would you say was your biggest takeaway of having experienced it and delivered it?
Um, delivering it. Um, that it just really you yourself have to be in a good place to do it, right? Like, and that looks different to everyone, but I knew like, okay, I have to have like a full energy battery myself, because if I want to be present for my coaches, I they gonna sap some of my energy, like in a good way, right? But so it's a lot of like it's almost kind of like an energy transfer.
Mm.
So holding that space just requires you to really like have your own generator. Um, so that was really a really interesting to see and to learn. And in the sense of going through it, it was really interesting. Like now, I think the course like was end of May, so now it's a couple of weeks past since then, and it's only now like you start realizing, oh yeah, true. Like for one we did like the submodalities like to dislike, and there was a particular brand of crisps I wanted to stop eating, like in front of the telly during the evenings. And it's just now I'm like, oh, right. Like, I haven't had them since. And it was just interesting to know, to kind of realize, oh, and it's not has been like a conscious decision. You know, when you're like, when you would go on a diet, you're like, oh, I'm not supposed to eat the crisps. I'm not supposed to. And you're always kind of like, and your mind's going like, crisp, 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 crisp. And now it's just blank. Like it's not even like it's not an option. It's not something I would do. And that was really interesting. So now it's coming. There are all these like different kinds of things. We're like, oh, now that's interesting, and I can reattribute that to
Mm.
NLP,
Yeah, yeah.
which is kind of cool.
Yeah, and I love that you say like one of the biggest takeaways has been that when you're working with your clients, you do have to have that energy battery to be able to hold that space for them. Would you say having experienced NLP firsthand yourself as well has created you like the ability to be able to do that?
Um, yes and no, I suppose. Like it really helped me to realize, okay, when I pay a lot of attention to when, as a coachee myself, when do I start feeling uncomfortable, right? Like that could be when my coach is doing or saying something that makes me feel uncomfortable, or just anything. I just tried to pay attention to that and was looking like, okay, what could that have been? So that really helped me being coached. So like, okay, I want to like minimize discomfort.
Mm.
Um, and about like showing up and holding space, I think NLP can help you with that. And another part is just really you yourself letting go of expectations of how things should be, um, and really just focusing back on the present moment, on what is. And that is universal truth, I suppose.
Yeah, yeah. Oh, I love that. Yeah, amazing. We had a question about what about the pressure of not having enough time to devote to new challenges? The fact that fact would affect negatively my initial interest to concentrate on starting and practicing new business approaches. So what I think we've kind of spoken about this, haven't we? About creating the time and space to be able to devote to new challenges. For me, when I first started my business, when I had my full time job, it wasn't an option for me because I felt like I had this pull to doing something new. So I had the mindset of, well, I've got to make it work. Like I have to find the time. And that did mean for me having late nights and, getting up early to do things that needed to be done. But
Yeah.
for me, I found it was like the mindset of, well, this is what I'm feeling called towards doing, so I have to make this work. What would you say about that?
Um, I think it's a very tricky question that is layered with a lot of privilege. Um, to me personally, it looked like really setting and upholding strong boundaries, and it was always a no until it was like a hell yes. Um, and it also meant asking for help,
Mm,
for unpaid help in the form of my mom, babysitting, for example, or in the form of paid help. And that obviously is privilege. We were able to do that. Um, but and obviously also like support from my partner who has taken on like household and laundry and taking care of baby and whatever. Like, so it really, like, it takes a village. And for me, it was really, really hard to, and it still is not that easy. It doesn't come easy to me, is asking for help. Um, and so that's one part. And yes, I agree. The mindset thing is crucial, but whatever your kind of like affirmation is, it looks different to everyone. Like for me, also like recovering from a burnout I had years ago, like I'm just gonna do it with my sheer willpower. I knew that's not gonna bring me the full yards. Like it won't. Like at one point, my mind is gonna go in like self-protection mode, and I'm like out. So I always go like, okay, what feels fun to me? What feels what feels easy? What am I curious to try? What am I excited to do? And bring in sort of my inner adventure and just go with what feels fun to me. Um, and trusting that when I build on things I that are fun to me, I'm in the right headspace, in the right energy to tackle on so much more than if I would just be like, oh, I'm just gonna knuckle through. But
mm,
people are different, right? So you have to find the way that works best for you and then really run with it.
yeah,
Run as fast as you can with it.
yeah,
Whatever that speed looks like for you in that moment.
yeah, yeah. And I think, sometimes it can be scary, can't it? Doing something new or something that you've never done before, but it also has to feel expansive, like
Yeah.
like fun, like you say, like exciting and
Yeah.
expansive. And I think that's the difference, isn't it, between
Yeah.
really feeling into yourself and asking
Yeah.
yourself what does feel like. Yes, it might feel scary, but and it might be something new, and it might have to make some sacrifices potentially. But what feels expansive enough to be able to do that, and if it doesn't feel expansive, then there's
Yeah.
kind of another question that needs to be asked, isn't there?
Yeah. Yeah. And a good indicator for me is like when I feel, holy crap, I'm really gonna do this. That's an indicator for me, like I'm on the right track. Like whenever I, like, I don't know, I do goals, like, or goal setting or something, I'm like, but whenever I feel like, holy shit, I'm actually gonna pull that off. And it's that kind of like that tingling, glowing sensation in your like lower abdomen where you're like,
your
yeah,
gut feeling.
I'm probably gonna really quickly do it. And then you're like, yeah, okay. That's the one. That's the thing you should follow.
Oh, I
Always
love that.
go with that thing that makes you crap your pants.
Yeah. And on that note,
What a word to end our conversation.
but it's been such a brilliant chat, Jennifer. Thank you so much for being here. The doors are open at the moment to our NLP Practitioner Breakthrough Coaching course, which you've just completed. So if you do have any questions about that, just pop them in the comments, and I'll come back and answer them. The details of the course are in the link in the description as well. So if you've got any questions or need to find anything out, then you can head over there. So thanks so much, Jennifer. Where can people find out more about you and what you do?
Well, first, thank you so much for having me. It was a real blast talking to you. Yeah, it feels like chatting to a close friend. So that's brilliant. Well, if you're curious to know more about me and about how I work with brands and people, you can find me on my website, jenniferwalder.me. And obviously, I'm on Instagram. That's the only social I really kind of do. It's Jennifer underline CH, Jennifer Walder online CH. Yeah. Or just go on my website and you'll get directed from there.
Okay, brilliant. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Bye.